everyone. Welcome back to another episode of UniTea Days. And today is part 2 of our university series where we're going to talk about three things, mainly about accessibility. So, why did we choose York as our uni? And the cost of living, was it expensive? Was it moderate? Like, how did we survive on a budget? And also student support. So what kind of support services the university offered? So whether it's mental health services or the IT or anything that can help us as a student. So just a quick intro of who is on today's episode. I'm Mai, and we have AJ,
Hi.
and we have Farah,
Hello.
we have Yura,
Hi, hi.
and last but certainly not least, we have Shafi.
Hello.
Cool. So let's start with the location of uni. Let's start off with Yura and AJ because you two did your foundation in Cambridge. So you were already in the UK when you were looking for the university. So Yura, would you like to go how you chose York?
Um, if you guys tune in to last week's episode, really wasn't planning to go to York. Like York wasn't really my first choice, and I guess it's also because the location is very up north and it's quite far from bigger cities like Manchester or London. However, when I talked to local people when I was in Cambridge and I told them that one of my choices was York, they were really excited because apparently York is a beautiful place and it's really nice. It's a very small city where you can concentrate on your studies. So, yeah, in terms of location, I don't like the fact that it's a bit far from bigger cities, which has international airports. So it's really hard to go to York when you just arrive.
Yeah, that's a good point. York has good train links. So there's a direct train from York to London and to Manchester. A lot of us flew in through Manchester and had to take a train direct to York. And yeah, the first time we do that, especially if we're on our own, like it's not easy. As opposed to people who live in major cities like Manchester or London, and they can just take a taxi from the airport to wherever they live in the city. Yeah, that's a good point, Yura. AJ, what about you? How did you go from Cambridge to York?
Well, first I didn't come from Cambridge. I came from Oxford. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah, but it's fine.
My apologies.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it's funny because I wasn't considering York at all. Like I've never heard of York before. Um, foundation year. And it's funny because one of my classmates then, well, we went to this like university fair in London, sort of like prepared by the school. So all of Bellerby's people went there to that school fair. And then that's when my classmate then told me like, "Hey, I'm planning to apply to York. Want to like check it out with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But I wasn't really considering it. I was just expanding my options then. So yeah, so then I got introduced to York, and then I found out about it. Turned out to be a really good university. My tutor back then encouraged me to like pick York as my top option because it's a really good university for the biological sciences, and back then I was gonna take up biomedical sciences. So that's sort of like my main considering factor of why I chose York. But like in terms of like location wise, I didn't even know it was up north. Yeah, so I was really bad at like geography, so I didn't know much about like locations of places in the UK. All I knew was like York was really good and that their reputation was really nice and they're like a Russell Group university. And then
Yeah.
when I got my acceptance letter, this is the only time I actually bothered checking where it was, how to get there.
Oh.
So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I've heard a lot about it from my other classmates who went to York for their open day. And what she told me was that York was a very tiny city. It was very similar to Oxford, except that it's a lot cleaner and a lot a lot calmer, if the more tranquil, if you like to say the least. Like it's very tranquil and yeah, like the environment was very conducive for learning apparently when she went there. Which when I went there, yeah, I felt that too. It was very friendly, a lot friendlier than Oxford. And it was very accessible. Like if you wanted to go to York from a different country, like there's the Manchester airport, and it's just like 2 hours away from York. Or if you really want to go from London, that's also another, like it's just 2 hours away from London as well. I mean, train tickets might be more expensive, but if you have to
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
York, you can get there. There's also an option for a bus. So from
Mm.
London, which
Oh, that's
is
cheap.
yeah, that's very cheap, but at the same time, it takes a whole day. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's very very accessible. Like whatever means you want to get to York, you can get there, and it's a very like touristy place. So you will find your
Mm.
way to York one way or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I came about to York.
Oh, thanks, AJ. Yeah, that's really insightful. It's funny when when I was looking at universities and I was telling people like, "Oh yeah, I want to go to York," and people always got confused between New York and York. Yeah, that's a very silly issue, but
Always, always.
yeah.
That and the York
It
University
was,
in Canada.
oh
Yes,
yes,
Oh,
that's another
exactly.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a disclaimer to our listeners. When we talk about York, we're talking about University of York in England, not
Yes.
in Canada, not New York. Just a disclaimer. Okay, Fa, do you have anything to add about location?
Um, I think it's the same as Yura as well. So we talked about in the previous episode. For me, it was pretty much easier because of the sponsors' rules for us. So they helped us shortlist based on the university rankings. I mean, I did have several options besides York. So Manchester was one of them as well. And even the thought of going back to London and Nottingham appeared in my mind. But I felt like I wanted to challenge myself a bit more since this time I'm going alone, not with my family. So I think it would be better if I go somewhere that I haven't ventured to. So that's where I decided to go to York, which is a bit more up north. And it's the same thing as well. So it's a smaller city. I'm pretty sure it has everything that we need back then, being a student. Of course, I did a bit of research and look up a bit of videos as well. And yeah, I just decided that I wanted a place that was complete enough, like conducive enough for learning, had everything that I needed. It's close enough to the bigger cities like Manchester, Leeds, if I needed to escape on the weekends or anything like that. So yeah. And yeah, just like AJ said as well. So trains in the UK is super convenient. Don't be afraid if the place that you're going to study doesn't have an international airport. It might actually work in your favor because it's not going to be as busy. And yeah, it's literally easier to go to anywhere using the trains or buses in the UK.
Um, Thanks for that. Yeah, I think we pretty much summed up why York was a location that we wanted to go to. Might not be the prime reason. It's not a big city by any means. It is. I think it is considered a city because it has a cathedral, if I remember correctly.
Is that how you
But
Yes,
consider cities?
yeah, in the UK.
apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
It spent like
oh,
4 years there and I
Yeah.
didn't
So
know that.
it's funny because like yeah, if I talk to someone from London or Manchester, they think York is a town. But then I'm like, no, no, we have a cathedral, so we're a city. So yeah, location wise, York is up north. But I think what drew me to York was the fact that it had a good train link. The trains go to multiple cities in the UK, so it's quite accessible if you want to go somewhere. Yeah, I think transport is it's very easy to get around the UK from York, and I think that's what drew me because I love trains. I love going on train rides. So it's nice to do that. But I also did some bus trips as well because it's cheaper and it's quite nice as well. And yeah, I think you all just summed up why York is a good location in the end. I also did my master's in London. It's a big change from York because instead of having to travel somewhere else to go to a halal Nando's, I can just go hop on a tube to go to a halal Nando's. So it's different, and I think each city has their own perks. And I think when you're choosing a university, it's up to you whether you want to live in a city where you can assess a lot of things, or are you willing to be in a more quiet area and then go out and travel. So yeah, it's really up to you guys, like whether you are willing to travel or you want to live in a city. So let's move on to our next part of this episode, and that's cost of living. So AJ, do you like to talk about the cost of living in New
Uh,
York?
okay. Cost of living, it's quite hard to like talk about it in general because it really depends on like the person who's gonna live there, like the type of lifestyle that you have prior to like university. So in York, like it's relatively like cheaper compared to like bigger cities like London or Manchester, Leeds, or even in Oxford. It's a bit cheaper in York, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
like that's in general. Like living expenses, it's gonna be similar for each city that you go into, especially like as an international student, because we tend to like pick either houses or like student accommodations, like flats and stuff like that. And the flats generally are more expensive, if I remember correctly, right? They are more expensive than the usual house
Yeah.
accommodations. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the house
Yeah.
ones you can share with your friends, whereas the flat, like you have to pay for yourself. So it's kind of like the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really depends on like your lifestyle. Because again, like food in New York is cheaper compared to like bigger cities. But then if you like eating out a lot, then obviously your costs of living would be on the higher end. In terms of like drinking or like nightlife, because we have university nights, it's a lot cheaper. But yeah, compared to like the bigger cities, it's definitely cheaper. If you're like if budget is a main thing for you, then yeah, New York is a lot cheaper to live in. I lived on a very tight budget and I was able to survive, so I guess it's all right for me. But yeah, if you're more of like a recreational type of person, then probably not the best city to be in because there's not much to do in New York except like tour and tour and tour. it's, that's basically what you can do. Like you don't have much leisure centers in New York, if I remember complete that correctly. But there are nearby like areas
Yeah.
where you can go into, like again Leeds if you want a more exciting lifestyle, or if you want a more quiet place than like I don't know Whitby probably. Not sure. But yeah, like cost of living relatively cheap, very budget friendly for those who are worried about budgets. And this is coming from an international student who has to convert everything before they pay. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, AJ, for that. So, Shafi, would you like to talk a little about cost of living? And you also wanted to talk about what we previously talked about?
Yeah, so I'll begin with location wise. I chose Uni of York. Um, I chose the uni mostly because of the city itself. I remember doing a lot of research online before I actually went to York. And even just knowing York virtually, I already fell in love with the city. I guess it's not so much because of the location. It's a bit inconvenient though, because it's 2 hours away from London. But at the same time, I was fine that there was a direct train from London to York, and it takes about 2 hours. Yeah, and plus I'm not really a big fan of London, so being as far away from London as I can is fine. Although I do have to go to London for a lot of logistical stuff. But yeah. So anyway, on the city itself, just fell in love with York. Mostly because of the history. that the city has. I can't do justice. Let me see how historical York as a city is. I mean, it is in fact a city. Although I when I said that a cathedral is how you determine a city in the UK, that's totally new to me. but yeah, but like the York is in fact it used to be the capital of England at one point when the Romans occupied England for a couple of for I don't know how long, but it was quite a while. That itself is a huge historical aspect. And then I remember there were a lot of other occupations following that. I'm just being a history nerd right now. I remember like the Vikings
Oh.
at one point also occupied York, and that's why York has a lot of these colonial influences, and you can literally see them in the buildings erected in York. You can see that in the famous walls that York still has until now. I just think it's really, really beautiful. And yeah, like the history of York is really something that I was really, really interested in, which made me choose the uni, which was not that far from the city itself. Yeah, but like I said, York it's a city, but it's not a huge city, which is totally fine for me because like I keep saying this to people when I say when they ask me about York, like don't you find it boring there? It's a small city. I'm just like I love small cities. It's like I love big cities too, but I don't like living in big cities. Yeah, York has its charm, and then
Yeah.
plus the nearest metropolitan is just 30 minutes away. That's Leeds, and then if I just feel bored, I just hop on a train, and it's like 20 minutes train ride, and yeah, it's just perfect. I just do my shopping there. But York still has a lot of good outlets. We have what is that thing?
The
The York
designer
outlet.
outlet.
Yeah, the designer outlet. Yeah, so like I think York is just perfect. Like everything is there in York. Like we can find halal food, although there's not a lot. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the location. So I'll just jump right into cost of living. I feel like it's not that bad, like in York, because when you say cost of living, are we talking about accommodation? Yeah, and all that stuff.
Just it could be as general as just your day-to-day life or the rent,
Oh yeah,
transport.
yeah, yeah, the rent. Okay, yeah. For my first year of uni, I stayed in one of the dorms. Is that what you call it? What do you call what did we call them again? Halls, yeah,
Yeah,
like student
UK
hall.
Yeah.
calls.
Yeah, goodness, I forgot all about these words. Although like the rent was really was quite high. I could only do that for a year. My first year. I forgot how much it was, but it was really expensive, which prompted me to move out to private residence, which we rented out in Newland Park Drive. That was much cheaper. I can't remember though how much the rent was exactly, but it's relatively cheaper. And I remember when I tell this to my friends, say something about the general accommodation costs in York. It's not as bad as other places. And I'm quite grateful for that. Yeah.
Do you,
In
wait,
terms of
sorry to
food,
jump in,
what?
Chappie.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask you about when you said your friends was surprised at cost of the accommodation. Where were your friends based?
A lot of places here and there. Some of them are from London, and that's obvious.
Right.
Like they find it really cheap. But some are from like Lancaster and other
Okay.
parts of northern England. And
Okay.
I guess it varies from houses to houses. I believe because I remember some of my friends who live in York. I mean, who live in another house. The rent was much different. Oh,
Um.
what was I about to
Yeah.
say? The next one. Oh, yeah, it's about food. Uh, I can't really remember as well about the food, but I just remember like it's not bad lah. Like for me, it's fine. Although I do get broke. And plus I was on scholarship, so they gave me allowances every month. and I basically live off of that on top of these other financial sources. But yeah, it was as a student. Pretty much the cost of living in New York is not bad. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for your insight, Shafi. Fa, would you like to say anything about cost of living?
Sure. So it's just sort of like an addition to what Shafi has mentioned. So I was also sponsored. I had allowances as well from my sponsors. Um, so for me, the thing that I noticed is that I spent most of my allowances on rent, of course. I can't really say it was cheap, but that's only for good reason because the place that I lived in was a townhouse. It had two kitchens, one shared living room, and it was 6 bedrooms. So, and the location itself was in the middle. It was in between the city and also the university. And the other thing I should mention as well, in York, you can literally walk anywhere. So you don't really have to catch the bus if you don't want to. You can save a lot. And we did that as well. Like after we were done with classes, we just wanted to take a walk. It ended up going to the city. And sometimes we would even go to the train station just because. So, and and yeah, I mean, day-to-day life, I think the cost of things were pretty much moderate, I would say. It's not it's like how AJ said, so it doesn't really matter which city you live in. Everything costs pretty much the same. Um, it's pretty standard, I would say. So the most thing that you would have to keep an eye on, I would say, is your rental and of course your utility bills as well. So with student accommodation, with halls and everything, it's pretty much included for some of them. So you pay that one-time rent; it's inclusive of all your utility bills and everything. So you don't have to think about that. It's the same with my house as well. So it's just a one-time payment for everything. But if you're living off campus when you're doing rentals, you have to keep those things in mind. So that's where you'll need to ask your landlords as well. How does it work? And yeah, that's my take on it.
Cool. I wanted to make a comment about rent. I think even though York is smaller than London and Manchester, I feel like Manchester's rent is cheaper for some reason. I guess it depends on where
Yes.
exactly you live in Manchester, but yeah, like I was paying what? I was paying like maybe 400 month. Um, was it 400 a month? I don't remember.
Probably a bit more than that.
Was it more? Yeah, I think it was maybe almost
Yeah,
500 a
I
month.
think so, yeah.
And yeah, I like how Fawn knows better than I do. But, yeah, and I was shocked when I met people who lived in Manchester because they can get like 200 or like your friends fought in what is it, Middlesbrough? Was it?
Yeah, in Middlesbrough.
Yeah, their rent was so cheap, right? Like,
Yes. I think it was around just below 300 for a
yeah,
month.
yeah.
It's really cheap, yeah. And even in Newcastle, I think one of our mutual friends, they had a place which is similar in size to what we had in York, but
Mm.
it's definitely cheaper there.
Yeah. So I think like York is pretty like expensive for rent considering that it's a smaller city than Manchester and Newcastle. So that could be something that you keep in mind if you're looking for university because like in the UK, I think the most expensive place to live in is definitely London. But you'll be surprised at how many cities are cheap in rent. So that could be something that you think about when you think of a cost of living in the UK. Yeah, and I think for me, I spent most of my money on concerts, food, and travel. So luckily, I think in our second year of uni, York, like University of York, came up with a scheme where you can pay. It was like it was called a fresher sale or whatever. They gave us a discount for instead of like £200 for unlimited bus travel, it was £99 in our second year. So that was a game changer. It was kind of like a London Oyster card where you had to top up the bus card. So in our second and third year, like having that unlimited bus pass is was very useful. So, Yura, do you have anything to add about cost of living in York?
I feel like it's all already mentioned.
Yeah.
From rent, food. Oh, what else?
Oh, what about transportation? I forgot about that. So yeah, transportation is not bad. I remember it's just £1 to get so for a single ride one way is just £1 on the bus on the student bus, that is, from uni to the city. And yeah, I feel like in terms of cabs as well, it's not so expensive in Europe, probably because like because of the distance. Like Facet could pretty much walk anywhere in York, but because everything is so in close proximity. But yeah, in general, I feel like even from the train station all the way to uni, it's not bad, And then plus they give student discounts, which is amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to add on transport, if you're living in a city where the trains are accessible, definitely get the is it 18 to 25 rail card? Because you get,
Yeah.
if you sign up for that, I think it's free, right? Isn't it free? Or did you have to pay a few pounds?
I can't
We
You had to
remember.
paid
pay a
like
small
I
fee for
paid
it. I
30.
think, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember it was somewhere around £30 as well for that
Oh.
one-time payment for that 1 year.
But yeah, definitely sign up for the 18 to 25 rail card when you're a student, because you can get 1/3 of the train ticket and it makes a huge difference. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So definitely sign up for that. When you're a student, sign up for every possible thing that can give you discounts. Use that as much as you can. So let's do the next bit of the episode, and that's student support. Instead of going around, I was thinking we could just pitch in our ideas. Let's start off with the IT. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Fa. Sorry, but
That's all right.
when you said the IT services,
Yeah.
what did you mean by that?
Okay. So with IT services, actually, it reminded me of that one situation I had. I don't know if you remember mine. I
Which
had
one?
that situation where my laptop screen wasn't working.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, just to give you guys a bit of background. So IT services, when we say that, it means a lot of things. So it can range from setting up your student account, can range from getting help with the IT service desk. If let's say you need some help with Turnitin, which is one of the tools you're going to use as a student, and of course with library services as well. So back then, when I had an issue with my laptop, going back to the story, I didn't know where to go. So as a student, of course, you would just think that, oh, just let's go to someone in the uni. Let's see if they can help me sort it out. So as it turns out, they couldn't because it's a personal property. It's not university property or anything. So they don't want to be liable, which is understandable. But at least they went to their lengths, out of their lengths, to help me out. So they told me what could be the reasons for it, what might be happening to my laptop screen, and where to go to as well. So they do understand actually that you're an international student, you don't know where to go, you're new there. The least that they could do is just point you to the right people, to the right directions. And that's when I figured out, and I was told actually, there was an IT center on campus. It's external, but it's just that they're based on uni. So they do IT services, IT tech stuff, so they can fix things for you. And it was just a short walk from the library, which is where the IT center was based. So yeah, I had it fixed there. The IT support people from uni actually told me in advance how much it would cost. So yeah, it's a pro tip for you guys as well. If ever you have any issues, don't hesitate to ask for help because you have no idea how much they're willing to give you that support. So yeah.
Cool. So maybe we could also talk about the library services that is available as a student. Yura, since you did research, do you want to talk about how you use the library or any services that they offered?
Oh wow. Our library is 24 hours and I have multiple times sleep there.
Yes,
Student
I
life.
remember those days.
Yeah.
Also, in addition, with the library in York, there's a few sections. So there is a specific section of the library where you can actually eat and do your work. So
Mm.
that's particularly good for students who have no time to eat and study. So you can cram both things in one.
Mm.
I remembered when I was in master's degree, and master's degree requires you to do a lot of research, and I technically live in the library for like 2 or 3 days because it has everything: small cafes, you can eat, and then you can pick like 3 different section of the library where whether you want to be silent or
Mhm.
if you want to discuss with people. And yeah, it opens 24 hours, so I stayed there until like 6 7 a.m. And there are people there who sleeps there, who actually do work there. The only thing they don't have is a shower. So
I think they
but
have that in Ron Cook Hub, right? They have.
Yeah.
I never showered in Ronka Cup, but I saw one there. And I
You
think,
were eyeing it.
yeah, I was eyeing it. I was, gosh, like the amount of times I sleep in different places in the uni is just
No.
wow. I think I slept in Ronka Hub as well. And there's this like student space where there's like bean bags and tables, and yeah, I slept there for like 1.5 hours and no one bothered me or anything like that.
Oh.
Yeah, so safety, like York is very safe,
Mm.
as well as the fact that some places is also 24 hours as well, and there's a lot of where student can study, so there's a lot of chairs, tables, bean bags, and bus is also 24 hours, I think.
Mm. Mm.
Yes. It goes by the hour after a certain time, I think.
Yeah.
After
Just a pro tip: don't go home from town at 4 a.m. because it's when all the students who are drunk home and the
party
bus are
bus.
usually full. Yep.
Yes.
The bus is at full capacity. You are not allowed to go in. So just ditch you there.
Mm.
That's true. But like at the same time, like it's so safe. You can literally just walk home.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so safe. I remember like going home at like 4:30 a.m. alone, and I
Yeah.
didn't feel like
Yes.
any threats at all. Like it's really really safe.
Yeah.
Mm.
In as long as you know where the safe places are, because there are parts of York that are dodgy and you should avoid that like early in the
Mm.
morning. But other than that, it's really safe.
Yeah.
We should
Yeah.
mention as well, like overall with York, it's pretty much safe because it's how to say this? It's a student city, and because the
Mm.
people who live there, majority of them are actually elderlies or people with family. So I mean, you're not gonna get like safety threats or anything like that. There's not when we say there's drunk people, it's not literally the ones harassing you like in bigger cities or anything like that. So it's much more safer compared to other bigger places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and can I add?
Yeah. Go for it.
So my brother is also in the UK right now at Loughborough, and apparently Loughborough Library are not 24 hours, and apparently not a lot of university has 24-hour libraries.
Mm.
So that's a thumbs up to York for having a 24-hour library.
And
Yeah.
safety wise as well, I think not anyone can simply enter the library or any of the university
Yeah,
facilities. You need a
Mm-hmm.
student card to access. So that's a plus point.
yeah.
Shafi, do you have anything to add about any support services you used at York?
Support services. Let me see. Have we touched on health? Maybe I'll do it. Because what's that?
No.
The student system called?
Is it
Yeah, I forgot what it's called.
the
Yeah,
which
Unity
Unity
Health?
Health? Yeah.
yeah, Unity Health. I was really really surprised by the services. It was free, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I had to pay something, but like turns out it was free. I don't know if the fee was inclusive of, I don't know, the general tuition fees we were paying or the international student fees. Yeah, it was free. And I went there for a couple of times when I was sick I remember at one point I was really paranoid that I was like having some sort of disease, and I don't know how I'm bringing this up, but like I remember seeing a doctor, and then but prior to that, I was on the online system, like chatting with someone. I don't know. Basically, I was just like saying how paranoid I was about this thing that I was having, and then like I remember the conversation was so pleasant, even though it's like I didn't know who that person was a total stranger, but like it was really pleasant. And then eventually they booked an appointment for me with the doctor. But the it wasn't at the uni. It wasn't on campus though. I remember I had to walk quite far to like a clinic outside
Oh.
of uni. Yeah, but like it's part of the uni services. Anyway, the Unity Health. But I remember I went to the doctor and everything. Turns out I was fine. But like, yeah, the whole experience, how pleasant that kind stranger was, amid me panicking, and then like the whole booking procedure. I think it was really fast when they booked. It was a few days after that, like because it was they on they apparently like according to from the conversation we were having, mine wasn't so much a serious issue, and then plus I think they knew I was like overreacting, and so like they booked me a few days to that, and then I went to see the doctor, and the doctor was really nice, and yeah, health services, that was really pleasant. um yeah, I don't know what else to talk about in terms of services apart from library. I really like the fact that library was open 24 hours. And I remember like being back in Brunei now. I feel like I've taken for granted all the the great IT services that York, because everything was online, right? We can just basically book a room online and then do a lot of things online, even like just booking like a medical appointment online. I feel like York really did well in the whole IT services thing, just generally. And yeah, kudos to York for that.
Okay, thanks, Shafi, for your input. AJ, do you have anything else to add?
Just like an addition to everything that everyone said already, like especially the library services, they're great. Like or a library, it's amazing. I remember because in biology you need to read a lot. I mean, it's quite a given that you have to read a lot in university, but like it's highly encouraged in biology that you read books. And what's nice is that even like just borrowing books in general is already online, so you can immediately see if the book that you're looking for is available or if it's like being borrowed by someone else for a specific time period and when they're expecting it to be back. Because it's great like if you're trying to wait for someone to read the book before you and you're panicking about timelines, it's great just to plan out your entire life, your entire studying life. Then what's also great is that you can request for books, so if they don't have it you can request for a newer version of it, or if you can request them to buy it for you, and usually they do get it for you, which is amazing. The staff in their library are amazing too. They're really lovely people. Because I remember I couldn't figure out how to look for a book in the in our library because it's massive. Well, it's not the biggest, but you know it's big compared to like the libraries in my country at least. But yeah,
Yeah.
they will help you out with stuff that you need. What's also great is that this is like sort of crossing over with the IT and the library. Is that the because using like this, I'm not sure if it's called even a cloud database, or basically like their servers are amazing. You can access all your files in all computers in the library, which is amazing if you're doing your dissertation and you have to work on codes. Because if you're trying to code for like a specific thing or program and you want to access it on the library or like in the biology department, you can just log in and you can have all your files there, and it's amazing. And the other thing is that all their computers are capable of like whatever you need to do. So, for example, like coding, it can get very taxing for the computers, but surprisingly, every computer that I've used in university, like they're great. They can handle all the codes that I input in there, despite having
Yeah.
like massive data sets, and that's a huge thing to consider. Like how powerful the technology that they have in the university that they currently have,
Yeah.
because we're now living in a very like tech heavy tech reliant society. So it's great if your university can keep up with the technologies available out there because they do renew everything every year, and they give us
Mm.
updates through like newsletters for the department, like, oh, we have this new technology available for you guys to play around with. It's great. Another thing that I'd like to like add, this is more of like a student run service, the Nightline. It's
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a great student service because it's for like, it's the I think their intention was to help out students facing like mental health issues and problems. And if you want to talk to someone in the middle of the night and like you're feeling really lost and just need someone to like vent out to or like talk to, or someone to calm you down, you can ring them up and they will answer and they will help you out. And I've actually tried it. They're really great people there. So yeah, it's a great way to like, communicate your thoughts to someone, even if they're like strangers. Like they help you out with all your issues,
Yeah.
and they're very non-judgmental as well, which is a great thing to have for a mental health service. Maybe another thing, last thing that I can add on to was like the general student services in New York, like the one near NISA, whatever you how do you pronounce that?
Yeah. I don't even know.
I never
There's
know.
always that
It's a
ongoing
mystery.
debate.
Yeah. But yeah, this the general student center there. They're like, I think you can go to the UC shop as well, and they will help you out. But like the general student
Mm.
services place in York, like they're great. Like I remember going there in my first year and just asking like, I don't know how to live. Well, I didn't ask it that
Mm.
way, but you get what I mean. Like I don't know how to like get
Yeah.
places and stuff. I didn't know what to do. Like how do I find a place to live in and stuff like that? And they helped me out a
Mm.
lot. Like they would give you like tips, like, oh, you can go to the bank to get your bank open. Like we'll give you a letter and stuff like that. You can request for one online, and yeah, they will walk you throughout like adulting life basically. If you need help with
Yeah.
adulting, they can help you out massively. Sometimes like even though it's not in their job description to do it, they will help you out either way because that's just how nice people are in York.
Yeah.
Like they're lovely people. But yeah, those are the things that I found very useful and helpful whilst being in university alone.
Uh, just to touch base on the student support at uni. So I remember during my first few weeks, I went to Student Hub a lot. So
Hmm.
Student Hub is like one of the things like a student support center, if that makes sense. They usually would have a team just dedicated for international students. So they understand with being an international student, it might imply a lot of things. You might have issues with, let's say, your visa. They might need sorry, if you need some advice about what are the do's and don'ts with your student visas, like what is allowed, what is not allowed, and stuff like that. And even if, let's say, you are looking to work part time, so with student visas, you can actually work 20 hours per week. If you need like extra advice on that one, they can actually help you to either advise you directly or direct you to the right team for that one. And if, let's say, you're just lost, you don't know, it's your first time abroad, first time going to university, you don't know where to start, I would always recommend that you go to the student support services. So they
Mm.
would be the ones like an info center basically to help you out, like sort you through your first few weeks at uni.
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
important, especially, yeah, all of us were international students. So we didn't have family that we could go to. And I think the university kind of became our family. And yeah, having people we could go to, even for like things that we feel like we already should know, but we don't, I think it's really important. Um, AJ, since you mentioned about Nightline, I think I want to expand on that and talk about the mental health services that I used when I was a student at York. And oh, for the life of me, I can't remember what the counseling service is called. It's a counseling service under the university, and I loved that service. Honestly, it was the best support that I could have possibly gotten. Um, Kind of like how Shafi said about health services, about UniTea Health. Yeah, I resorted to the counseling service, and it was so nice. They were really helpful, really understanding. And there's this one time where I was super stressed because I needed to get an extension on my assignment, and I needed proof or like guidance or something. And okay, I was a bit like erratic. I went to the building, the mental health services, and long story short, they listened, like my counselor invited me to her room and we talked for a bit and she helped sort out the stuff that I needed to, and I think it was really helpful. Yeah, it's great to have that support, especially as a student, as someone who's living alone, etc., etc. Yeah.
Sorry, just jumping in. Was it Open Door, the one that you went to?
Oh, it might be.
Is that what it's called? If it's the same one, it's actually run by student well-being officers
Ah.
and mental health practitioners as well. So I think they're psychologists, either psychologists in training or people who
Mm,
are actually registered. Yeah. So they do services for registered students in the uni.
yeah. Um, yeah, just on a general aspect, like if you're struggling with mental health, your university most likely will have a service that you could go to. And if it's important to you, make sure you do the research before you go. Um, Shafi unfortunately had to go. He wanted to talk about support for international students. Yeah, does anyone want to talk about any support they received as an international student
Oh, like from where?
from York? Because, like, for me, when I received a conditional offer, they sent me an email. I think it was from the Malaysian Society that they just said like, hey, like we know that you're Malaysian and there's a society here, and we just wanted to touch base and invite you to our events and our page and whatnot. So that was the first point of contact that I got as an international student. Did anyone had something similar, or like even when you arrived, any support?
Uh, yeah, touching back on what Mai said about the Malaysian Society. So it was slightly easier for me to go around after I arrived was because I was reached out by a group of Malaysian students. With being a sponsored student, so because there was a batch of us going to universities, so they actually did like a what do you call it? Like a pre-departure event, if that makes sense.
Ah,
So
yeah.
so we had that in Malaysia for a few weeks before we flew off to UK. So they helped give us a bit of breakdown. So once before you go, what should you do? After you arrive there, where should you go to and stuff like that. And then when you arrive in the UK, there was actually a group of students helping you sort things out as well. So they would help you to your accommodation. They would help you in terms of like your next few days where you should be going, and then what you should be bringing to the bank as well to open up your bank accounts and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, the student support services is definitely an important aspect when you're looking at universities, because you want to make sure that you are supported and that you could reach out for help when you need it. Well, we are coming to the end of part 2 of the series, and stay tuned for the next episode where we're going to be talking about the fun part of uni, our student lives outside of academics. So it's all about societies, about clubs, about nightlife. Yeah, stay tuned for that. And feel free to comment or DM us about any questions or topics that you want us to cover if it relates to student life, or if not, for future episodes. We would love to hear your feedback. So before our part 3, we're going to have another Nerd Out episode where our member, Yura, will be talking about her experience in using the support services. I won't spoil it for you, but it's something very unique and I think is very important. And with that, I would like to close this episode. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And our DMs are always open, so feel free to pop us a message. With that, thank you very much.